Okay, so we are actually here on the beach with part of a shipwreck, and that's kind of what ends up happening if you have a conservatorship that wasn't planned. Hi, this is Jeff Marsace, the Plain English Attorney, and we are actually still at the Outer Banks. And I'm here with my friend Bob, I grew up with. Say hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
And we're going to see what kind of trouble we can get into on the Outer Banks today. Okay, so we're here on the Outer Banks, and we managed to get to the Dancing Turtle coffee shop, and we're trying to figure out what kind of video to do. So with all of this great stuff around, of course, we're going to talk about incapacity and trusts and conservatorship and all that wonderful stuff. So it's actually going to help out because my friend Bob here is in nursing home administration, so he often sees what happens if somebody becomes unable to handle a lot of their decisions themselves. Okay. So the situation that we're really going to look at is what happens if you have a revocable living trust in place and suddenly someone gets conservatorship over the person who set up the trust and is the beneficiary. Unfortunately, this happens during life. Sometimes people end up becoming incompetent at Alzheimer's, dementia, and it's a kind of a long-term thing. The planning that we put in place has a durable general power of attorney. It has a healthcare power of attorney. There's the trust, which has a successor trustee, which will step in and they'll manage things for the assets that are inside the trust. We try to do everything we can so that you have the people listed and the documents. But what happens if? What happens if there's a different conservator put in place? What do we do? All right, the first thing to realize is you've got to see what assets are outside the trust and what assets are inside the trust. Just because somebody ends up becoming conservator, in other words, a court really appointed them as a guardian, that doesn't mean they automatically get control over the assets in the trust. It's in a trust, it has its own terms, and it says the successor trustee is the person who takes over. So it's not an automatic thing. If they have maybe a bank account, retirement accounts, life insurance that they can borrow against, well, the conservator can get to those things. But if you've got the house, you've got the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and other stuff inside the trust, they don't automatically get there. That's for the successor trustee, and that's sometimes where things can get confusing, but if you stick to the basics, you're going to understand it. Okay, so we are actually here on the beach with part of a shipwreck, and that's kind of what ends up happening if you have a conservatorship that wasn't planned. Now, when we're talking about a conservatorship and a person who's got that guardianship versus the trustee, it's different people. All right, what do you do? The revocable trust has its assets that's controlled by the trustee. Not controlled by the conservator. The conservator, they get to look at things that aren't in the trust. IRAs, 401ks, life insurance that you can borrow against. And they're also kind of taking over handling tax returns and signing stuff. And depending on how it's done, they may also be overriding who is the healthcare power of attorney to make the medical and personal decisions for someone who can't do it. But it's completely separate from the trust. All right, so whether it's the conservator or the trustee, they're still the same beneficiary. It's the person who set up the trust, and they're the beneficiary. They're the person that you have to look out for. So this might be an unfortunate circumstance where you have two different people trying to do the same job with different sets of assets. And this is actually something that's in the works right now. We had clients, a husband and a wife. The husband needed guardianship, and the judge overrode the power of attorney and said, no, the daughter's in charge of him and, quote, his assets. But those assets inside the trust, his wife is the trustee who's in charge of it now. So both of them have an obligation to use the assets for his benefit, but it's different sets of assets. Daughter has the stuff outside the trust, if there's much of anything. Wife has the assets inside the trust. So that dichotomy ends up probably not being very efficient, but that's the result. Okay, so how do we kind of prevent having different people in charge of different things? Well, look, when we're doing the actual planning, we're always lining up, quote, all your financial people, the trustee list, the power of attorney list, the executor, and who would be the conservator of the estate. Those are the same lists of people. Healthcare, who's your healthcare power of attorney, who's your conservator of the person, same list. Now, when you put the plan together, the whole idea is that you don't want a conservator anyway. In the end, my clients get a revocable living trust to avoid probate, and conservatorship is nothing more than living probate. So they want to avoid it. So when do conservators actually end up getting appointed and it's somebody different? Usually there's something wrong with the person who's in charge, and they may even end up being removed as trustee. Now, in the example I was giving, the person who got conservatorship over dad, even though mom is still okay, she is the first successor trustee after mom and dad. So we'll see how all of that stuff shakes out. So I really hope that you found that information useful and understand a little bit of the distinctions there with conservatorship versus trust. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and write in a comment that yes, you subscribe to the channel, but also if you've got any questions on this or anything else you want to see another video, put it into the comments. We actually do read them and respond to them, and hopefully we can get a video together for whatever is going to be interesting you. So again, this is Jeff Mersace, the Plain English Attorney, and as always, please stay safe, plan ahead, enjoy life, and whatever you do, make it a great day.